She sat beneath a fluorescent bulb, counting 17 crumpled dollars while the baby hiccuped in the dark. One wrong text asked for 40. Seconds later, 400 arrived. Then 8 cans, then a black sedan. 3 taps. Pause. 3. A woman entered like she owned time. He called them family and asked for her address. Some moments change everything forever. The fluorescent light above the kitchen table flickered once, twice, then died. Sarah Chen didn't bother to fix it. The darkness felt appropriate for counting $17 in crumpled bills while her 6-month-old daughter Emma cried from the bedroom. The formula can sat empty on the counter, mocking her with its bright label promising nutrition she couldn't afford. Sarah's phone buzzed. A text from her landlord. Rent overdue, 48 hours, or eviction notice. She stared at the message until the words blurred. Her hands trembled as she scrolled through her contacts, stopping at her brother Mike's name. He'd helped before, reluctantly, with lectures about responsibility and poor choices, but Emma's hunger didn't care about pride. She typed quickly, fingers shaking. Mike, I need $40 for formula. Emma's crying and I get paid Thursday. Please. Her thumb hovered over the send button. The apartment felt smaller with each of Emma's cries. She pressed send without checking the number. 3 minutes passed. Her phone buzzed. Wrong number. Sarah's stomach dropped. She grabbed the phone, checked the message thread. The contact read M. Romano instead of Mike Chen. Her brother's number was saved wrong. She'd texted a complete stranger. God, I'm so sorry, please ignore that. She typed back, heat flooding her cheeks. The response came immediately. Is the baby okay? Sarah stared at the screen. What kind of stranger asked follow-up questions? Most people would have blocked her by now. She should delete the conversation, pretend it never happened. Instead, she found herself typing. We'll manage. Sorry again. How old? The question hung on her screen like a test. Sarah looked toward Emma's bedroom, where the crying had subsided into hiccups. Why was this person still engaging? Every instinct told her to stop, but desperation had its own logic. 6 months. Name? Sarah hesitated. Giving a stranger her daughter's name felt like crossing a line she couldn't uncross. But something about the directness of the questions, the absence of judgment, made her answer. Emma. The response took longer this time. Sarah counted the seconds, wondering if she'd finally scared them away. Her phone buzzed. Send me your payment app details. Sarah blinked. She read the message 3 times before it registered. This stranger wanted to send her money. The rational part of her brain screamed warnings about scams and predators. But the desperate mother part whispered about formula and diapers and keeping the lights on. I can't accept money from someone I don't know. She typed. You can now. I'm Marcus. The name sat on her screen like a business card. Marcus. It told her nothing and everything. Someone confident enough to give his name to a stranger. Someone who made decisions quickly. Someone who apparently had $40 to spare for a random mother's plea. Why would you help me? Because babies shouldn't go hungry. The simplicity of it made her chest tight. No conditions, no questions about her situation or choices. Just a fact delivered like scripture. Sarah stared at her phone until the screen dimmed. Emma had gone quiet, either exhausted from crying or resigned to disappointment. In the silence, Sarah made her choice. She sent her Venmo details. Her phone buzzed 30 seconds later. Payment notification. But instead of $40, the screen showed $400. Sarah's hands shook as she opened the app, confirming what she'd seen. $400 from Marcus Romano. She grabbed the edge of the table to steady herself. This is too much, she typed frantically. I only needed 40. Keep it. I can't. This is... She deleted several attempts at explaining why she couldn't accept this much money from a stranger. Nothing captured the magnitude of what had just happened. You can, came his reply. And you will. The certainty in those words sent a chill down her spine. Not threatening, but absolute. Like he was stating a law of physics rather than making a suggestion. Sarah set her phone down and walked to Emma's room. Her daughter lay sleeping. Tiny fists pressed against her cheeks, unaware that her world had just shifted. $400. Enough for formula, diapers, rent, groceries. Enough to breathe for a month. Sarah touched the screen of her phone. Marcus Romano's name glowing in the darkness. She typed a simple response. Thank you. The reply came instantly. You don't thank family. Sarah stared at the word. Family. They'd exchanged maybe 10 messages. She didn't know his last name until the payment notification. She didn't know what he looked like, where he lived, what he did for work. But somehow, in the space between desperation and generosity, he'd claimed her, or she'd been claimed. The next morning brought routine with an edge of unreality. Sarah bought formula without checking the price. She paid her rent without begging for an extension. She dressed Emma in clean clothes without rationing detergent. But with each small luxury, the weight of Marcus Romano's kindness pressed heavier on her shoulders. Her phone stayed silent all day. No follow-up messages, no requests for gratitude, no explanations of what he expected in return. The silence felt loaded with possibility and threat in equal measure. That evening, as Sarah fed Emma her second full bottle in 24 hours, her phone buzzed. "How is she?" Sarah looked at Emma's contented face, milk-drunk and peaceful. She typed back, "Better, much better. Good. Address?" The request hit like cold water. Sarah's finger hovered over the keyboard. Giving her address to a stranger crossed every safety rule she'd ever learned. But this stranger had already proven he could find her if he wanted to. The payment app had her name, probably her location data. Her address was just another piece of information he could access if he chose to. More than that, some small voice in her head whispered that she owed him this. He'd helped when no one else would. He'd asked for nothing in return except the knowledge that Emma was safe. What harm could there be in sharing an address with someone who'd already demonstrated nothing but kindness? She typed her address and hit send before she could reconsider. Good. Sleep well, Sarah. The use of her name, which she'd never given him, made her hands still. He knew her name. He knew where she lived. He knew she had a baby named Emma. Marcus Romano had collected her information as efficiently as he'd solved her problems. Sarah double-checked the locks on her apartment door that night. She kept her phone next to her pillow. She listened to every sound in the hallway outside her door. But nothing happened. No footsteps, no knocks, no signs that anyone had taken note of her address. Just silence, and the growing certainty that her life had changed in ways she didn't yet understand. Sarah woke to the sound of knocking. Not the aggressive pounding of landlords or bill collectors, but measured, patient taps that suggested the visitor could wait all day. She checked her phone. 7 in the morning. Emma still slept, her breathing soft and even in the crib beside Sarah's bed. The knocking came again. 3 taps, pause, 3 taps. Sarah pulled on a robe and crept to the peephole. A woman stood in the hallway, middle-aged, wearing a navy coat and holding a large bag. Her posture spoke of someone accustomed to being let in without question. Sarah opened the door but kept the chain lock engaged. "Can I help you?" The woman smiled, the kind of professional warmth that belonged in corporate lobbies. "Sarah Chen? I'm Maria Santos. I have a delivery from Mr. Romano." The name hit like a physical thing. Sarah's grip tightened on the door. "I didn't order anything. He thought you might need these." Maria lifted the bag slightly. "Baby supplies. Formula, diapers, some other essentials." Sarah stared at the bag, then at Maria's face. The woman waited with infinite patience, as if strange deliveries at dawn were perfectly normal. Behind her calm expression, Sarah sensed something harder, not threatening, but immovable. The kind of person who completed tasks regardless of obstacles. How did he... Sarah stopped herself. The questions were endless and pointless. Marcus Romano knew her address. Of course he could arrange deliveries. "May I?" Maria gestured toward the apartment. Sarah hesitated. Accepting money through an app felt abstract, digital. Letting a stranger into her home crossed into territory she couldn't take back. But Emma would wake soon, hungry again, and the formula Maria carried represented weeks of security. She unlatched the chain. Maria entered with the confidence of someone who belonged everywhere. She set the bag on Sarah's kitchen table and began unpacking items with practiced efficiency. Formula cans, size 3 diapers, baby wipes, organic food pouches, a soft blanket in pale yellow. Everything Emma needed, and several things Sarah couldn't afford to want. "Mr. Romano wanted to ensure you had everything," Maria said, arranging items on the counter. "He's very thorough." The word thorough carried weight. Sarah watched Maria's movements, noting how she oriented herself to see both the front door and the bedroom where Emma slept. How her coat hung loose enough to conceal whatever she might carry underneath. How her smile never wavered but never reached her eyes. "What does Mr. Romano do?" Sarah asked. Maria paused in unpacking a box of baby bottles. "He helps people." The non-answer felt like a door closing. Sarah tried a different approach. Are you his employee? I'm his associate. Maria resumed her task. He has many associates. Another non-answer. Sarah counted the formula cans. 8 of them. 3 months' worth at Emma's current consumption. Someone who sent 3 months of baby formula to a stranger wasn't just being kind. He was making an investment. This is too much, Sarah said. Maria looked up from folding the yellow blanket. Mr. Romano doesn't do too much, he does what's necessary. The distinction felt important, though Sarah couldn't articulate why. Maria finished unpacking and pulled a phone from her coat pocket. She typed a brief message, then returned the phone without checking for a response. He'd like to meet you, Maria said. Tomorrow evening. Dinner. Sarah's pulse quickened. I can't. Emma? Bring her. Mr. Romano enjoys children. The casualness of the invitation made it more unsettling. A stranger who knew her address, sent expensive gifts, and now wanted to meet face to face. Every warning she'd ever heard about online predators and elaborate cons echoed in her head. But the formula cans sat on her counter like a fortress against hunger. The diapers represented weeks without choosing between Emma's needs and her own. Marcus Romano had proven he could solve her problems with a single text message. What could he accomplish in person? Where? Sarah asked. Maria handed her a business card. Heavy stock, simple design. Romano's in elegant script, with an address in the downtown district. No description of what Romano's actually was. 7 o'clock. Ask for the private dining room. Maria moved toward the door with the same measured confidence she'd entered with. At the threshold, she turned back. Dress nicely. Mr. Romano appreciates effort. The door closed with a soft click, leaving Sarah alone with 8 cans of formula and a business card that felt warm in her palm. She walked to the window and peered through the blinds. Maria sat in the driver's seat of a black sedan, phone pressed to her ear. After a few minutes, she drove away. Sarah spent the day researching. She typed Romano's and the address into her phone. The results showed an upscale Italian restaurant with stellar reviews and a reputation for privacy. Politicians dined there. Business leaders held meetings in the back rooms. Celebrities went when they wanted to avoid photographers. She searched for Marcus Romano next. The results were sparse. A few mentions in business articles, always in passing. Marcus Romano, local businessman. Mr. Romano, who declined to comment. No photos, no social media presence, no detailed biographical information. He existed in the margins of other people's stories. The absence of information told its own story. Someone wealthy enough to solve her problems instantly. Someone powerful enough to warrant privacy. Someone careful enough to stay out of photographs and public records. Sarah's imagination filled the gaps with possibilities that ranged from venture capitalist to something much darker. That evening, she tried on her only dress. Black. Purchased for job interviews that never materialized. It still fit, barely, though it felt different after pregnancy. She practiced conversations in the mirror while Emma napped. How to thank someone appropriately for unprecedented generosity. How to ask what he wanted in return without sounding ungrateful. Her phone buzzed at 8:30. A message from Marcus. Looking forward to tomorrow. Simple words that made her stomach flutter with anticipation and anxiety in equal measure. She typed several responses before settling on, me too. It felt like a lie and a truth simultaneously. She spent the night researching restaurants, reading reviews of Romano's, trying to understand what she was walking into. The photos showed elegant dining rooms with exposed brick and dim lighting. The menu featured items with prices that made her chest tight. A single entree cost more than she usually spent on groceries in a week. The reviews mentioned impeccable service, absolute discretion, and a clientele that valued both quality and privacy. Perfect for important conversations, wrote one reviewer. The kind of place where deals are made and secrets are kept, wrote another. Sarah read that last review 3 times. Secrets are kept. She looked at Emma, sleeping peacefully in her crib, unaware that her mother was preparing to enter a world where secrets mattered more than transparency. The business card sat on her nightstand, the restaurant's name catching streetlight from the window. Romano's. Tomorrow evening she would meet the man who'd answered her desperate text with unprecedented generosity. She would thank him properly, ask appropriate questions, and try to understand what someone like Marcus Romano wanted from someone like her. She would dress nicely, as Maria had instructed. She would bring Emma, as invited. She would walk into Romano's with gratitude and caution in equal measure, carrying her daughter into a conversation that would change everything, though she didn't know it yet. The formula cans gleamed on her counter like sentries, reminding her that Marcus Romano had already proven he could alter her reality with casual efficiency. Tomorrow, she would discover what else he was capable of. Romano's occupied a corner building with windows tinted dark enough to hide its interior from curious passers-by. Sarah stood across the street, Emma balanced on her hip, studying the restaurant's facade. Valet attendants moved between luxury cars with choreographed precision. Men in expensive suits emerged from sedans, their conversations dying as they approached the entrance. Women in designer dresses followed, their jewelry catching streetlight like scattered stars. Sarah adjusted Emma's blanket and crossed the street. The valet who approached her moved differently than the others. His smile felt practiced, his assessment immediate. He took in her department store dress, her worn shoes, her baby carrier with the kind of professional neutrality that spoke volumes. "Ms. Chen?" he asked. The fact that he knew her name shouldn't have surprised her anymore. Sarah nodded. "Mr. Romano is expecting you. Please, this way." Inside, Romano's felt like stepping into someone else's life. Crystal chandeliers cast warm light over tables draped in white linen. Conversations hummed at frequencies designed not to carry. Servers moved like ghosts, appearing when needed, invisible otherwise. The air smelled of garlic, wine, and money. The hostess, a woman with silver hair and knowing eyes, approached with the same recognition Sarah was learning to expect. "Ms. Chen, welcome. Right this way." They walked past the main dining room toward a corridor lined with oil paintings. The hostess stopped at a heavy wooden door marked private and knocked twice before opening it. The room beyond held a single table set for two. Candles flickered in the center, casting shadows that danced across exposed brick walls. A high chair waited beside one of the place settings, sized perfectly for Emma. Someone had planned for her daughter's comfort with the same attention they'd given to the wine selection. Marcus Romano stood as she entered. He was smaller than she'd imagined, but carried himself with the kind of presence that filled rooms regardless of physical stature. Dark hair touched with silver, olive skin that spoke of Mediterranean heritage, and eyes that assessed everything without seeming to stare. He wore a navy suit that fit like it had been made for him alone, which it probably had. "Sarah." He moved around the table with measured steps. "Thank you for coming." His voice matched his messages. Direct, unadorned, carrying the weight of someone accustomed to being heard the first time. He extended his hand and Sarah shook it, noting the calluses that suggested he hadn't always worn expensive suits. And this must be Emma. He looked at the baby with genuine interest, not the forced enthusiasm adults usually performed around children. Emma stared back, uncharacteristically quiet, as if sensing something significant about this moment. "Please, sit." Marcus gestured to the chair beside the high chair. Sarah settled Emma into the seat, grateful when her daughter accepted the new environment without fussing. Marcus poured wine for himself, water for Sarah without asking her preference. The assumption bothered her, though she couldn't articulate why. Maybe because it suggested he'd already decided what she needed, what she wanted, what was appropriate for her to have. "You look tired," he said. The observation felt too intimate for a first meeting. Sarah touched her face self-consciously. Single motherhood doesn't leave much time for sleep. No father in the picture? The question hung between them like a test. Sarah considered several responses before settling on truth. "He left when he found out I was pregnant. Said he wasn't ready for that kind of responsibility." Marcus's expression didn't change, but something shifted in his posture. A slight forward lean, a narrowing of focus. His loss. Two words that carried more weight than sympathy. They sounded like a judgment rendered by someone qualified to make such assessments. A server appeared with appetizers neither of them had ordered. Bruschetta, olives, cheese that probably cost more per ounce than Sarah's hourly wage. Marcus selected an olive and chewed thoughtfully before speaking again. "Tell me about yourself." The request felt loaded with subtext. Sarah picked at the bruschetta while choosing her words carefully. "Not much to tell. I'm 26, was studying accounting before Emma came along. Working part-time at a coffee shop now, trying to make ends meet." "You were studying accounting where?" "Community college. I had 2 semesters left when..." She gestured toward Emma, who was contentedly gnawing on a teething ring. Marcus nodded as if filing the information away. You're good with numbers? Good enough. Modest. Sarah met his gaze. Realistic. Something that might have been approval flickered in his eyes. I appreciate realism. Most people prefer comfortable lies. The server returned with entrees that smelled like heaven and looked like art. Ossobuco for Marcus. Seafood risotto for Sarah. She hadn't ordered it, hadn't seen a menu, but somehow the kitchen had prepared exactly what she would have chosen if money weren't a consideration. How did you know? She asked. Know what? What I'd want to eat. Marcus cut into his veal with surgical precision. I pay attention. The casual admission sent a chill through her. How long had he been paying attention? Since her accidental text or before? Had he researched her preferences, her habits, her history? The risotto tasted perfect, but suddenly felt like evidence of surveillance. You must have questions, Marcus said. Sarah set down her fork. Several. Ask. What do you do for work? I solve problems. Another non-answer wrapped in simplicity. Sarah tried a different approach. What kind of problems? Marcus paused, studying her face as if measuring her capacity for truth. The kind other people can't solve. The kind that require resources, connections, and occasionally uncomfortable decisions. The words hung in the air like smoke. Sarah glanced at Emma, who was falling asleep in her high chair, tiny fist curled around her teething ring. Whatever world Marcus Romano inhabited, it felt very far from baby bottles and late-night feedings. Why did you help me? She asked. Because you needed help. Lots of people need help. You don't send money to all of them. Marcus finished chewing before answering. No, I don't. So why me? He set down his knife and fork, giving her his complete attention. Because you asked for $40 and accepted $400 without trying to negotiate for more. Because you texted a stranger by accident and apologized before asking for anything. Because you're raising a baby alone and still worry about bothering people. His assessment felt too accurate, too complete, like he'd been studying her for months instead of days. That describes half the single mothers in the city, Sarah said. No, it describes you. The certainty in his voice made her chest tight. She reached for her water glass, buying time to think. What do you want from me? Marcus leaned back in his chair. Direct. I like that. Answer the question. I want to offer you a job. Sarah blinked. A job? I need someone with your skill set. Someone good with numbers, someone discreet, someone who understands the value of loyalty. You don't know anything about my loyalty. I know you've never told anyone about our arrangement. I know you haven't posted on social media about your sudden windfall. I know you haven't even told your brother, despite texting him originally. The accuracy of his observations made her hands still. He was right about all of it. She hadn't told anyone about Marcus Romano or his unexpected generosity. But how did he know that? What kind of job? She asked. Bookkeeping, record management, making sure numbers add up correctly. For what kind of business? Marcus smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. The kind that requires discretion. Emma stirred in her high chair, making soft sounds that indicated she'd wake soon. Sarah looked at her daughter, then back at Marcus. The man who'd solved her immediate problems with casual efficiency. The man who knew her preferences without being told. The man whose business required discretion in ways that probably weren't entirely legal. I need to think about it, she said. Of course. Marcus signaled the server, who appeared instantly. But don't think too long. Opportunities like this don't wait forever. The server brought a box for Sarah's barely touched risotto, and a car seat for Emma that looked expensive enough to feed a family for a month. Again, someone had anticipated her needs before she'd expressed them. As they prepared to leave, Marcus handed her an envelope. A small token of appreciation for your time tonight. Sarah opened it enough to see cash. More than she made in a month at the coffee shop. I can't accept this. You can, Marcus said, using the same tone he'd used in their first text exchange. And you will. Outside Romano's, the valet brought Marcus's car, a black Mercedes that probably cost more than Sarah's rent for several years. He opened the passenger door and waited. I'll drive you home. It wasn't a question. Sarah looked at the car, then at Marcus, then at Emma sleeping peacefully in her new car seat. Getting into that Mercedes felt like accepting more than a ride. It felt like agreeing to something she didn't fully understand. But the night air was cold and Emma needed to get home, and Sarah's apartment was an hour away by bus. She climbed into the passenger seat. breathing in leather and cologne and the subtle scent of power. Marcus drove in silence, jazz playing softly from speakers that probably cost more than her monthly salary. Sarah watched the city pass outside her window, noting how different it looked from inside a Mercedes. Cleaner somehow. More manageable. "The job offer stands," Marcus said as they pulled up to her building. Sarah looked at him in the dim interior light. "What if I say no?" "Then you say no. No pressure, no consequences. You keep the money I've given you and we never speak again." "And if I say yes?" Marcus turned off the engine. "Then your life gets more interesting." The words carried weight beyond their surface meaning. Sarah gathered Emma and her new car seat, accepting Marcus's help without protest. At her building's entrance, he handed her a business card. Different from the restaurant's card, this one held only a phone number. "When you decide," he said, "call that number." Sarah climbed the stairs to her apartment, Emma secure in her arms, Marcus's envelope heavy in her pocket. Behind her, the Mercedes waited until she was safely inside before driving away. She stood at her window, watching its taillights disappear into the night, knowing that whatever choice she made would alter the trajectory of both their lives. If you're still with me on this intense journey, I'd love to hear what you think. This story explores how desperation can make us accept help from unexpected places, but at what cost? Drop a comment below and let me know. If you were in Sarah's position, would you take the job? Sometimes the line between salvation and danger is thinner than we think. What would you do when faced with an offer that could change everything? Sarah didn't sleep that night. She counted the money in Marcus's envelope 3 times. $800 in crisp bills that smelled faintly of cologne and possibility. Emma slept peacefully in her crib, unaware that her mother was calculating the mathematics of moral compromise. The coffee shop felt different the next morning. The familiar chaos of morning rush, the steam from the espresso machine, the complaints about foam consistency all seemed smaller somehow, less significant. Sarah's manager, Trevor, barely looked up when she arrived 5 minutes late. "New girl called in sick again," he said, wiping his hands on his apron. "You'll need to cover register and prep." Sarah nodded, tying her apron with mechanical precision. 2 months ago, this news would have stressed her. Double shifts meant exhaustion, sore feet, and barely enough energy to care for Emma when she got home. Today, it felt like playing house. Marcus Romano's envelope sat in her locker, heavy with the promise that she didn't have to accept Trevor's casual dismissal of her time. The morning passed in a blur of espresso shots and credit card transactions. During her break, Sarah sat in the alley behind the shop, Marcus's business card balanced on her knee. Just a phone number printed in simple black font. No company name, no address, no indication of what awaited on the other end of that call. Her phone buzzed. A text from her brother Mike. "Haven't heard from you. Everything okay with Emma?" Sarah stared at the message. 3 days ago, she would have called Mike immediately, confessing her desperation and begging for help. Now she had more money in her locker than Mike made in 2 weeks. The shift in their dynamic felt seismic. "We're fine," she texted back. "Better than fine. Good to hear. Let me know if you need anything." Sarah deleted several responses before settling on a simple thumbs-up emoji. She couldn't explain her sudden financial stability without revealing Marcus, and something told her that conversation would complicate everything. After work, Sarah picked up Emma from daycare and walked home slowly, savoring the luxury of not checking her bank balance before stopping at the grocery store. She bought organic baby food, fresh vegetables, and actual meat instead of the processed substitutes she usually couldn't afford. The cashier smiled as she paid in cash, and Sarah realized she couldn't remember the last time she'd left a store without anxiety gnawing at her stomach. That evening, as Emma played with new toys Sarah had purchased without guilt, her phone rang. Unknown number. "Hello? Sarah." Marcus's voice was unmistakable. "How was your day?" The casual intimacy of the question caught her off guard, like they were old friends instead of near strangers bound by accidental circumstance. "Fine. Good, actually. You sound different." Sarah paused. "Different how?" "Less tired. Money does that. Removes a certain kind of exhaustion that has nothing to do with sleep." His observation felt too accurate, too personal. Sarah looked around her apartment, noting the groceries on her counter, the new toys scattered on her floor, the envelope of cash that had purchased a night of peace. "Have you thought about my offer?" Marcus asked. "I've thought about it." "And?" Sarah watched Emma stack blocks with determined concentration. Her daughter's world was simple. Food, warmth, love, safety. Sarah had struggled to provide even the basics. Marcus had solved those problems with casual efficiency. What would the job actually involve? Sarah asked. Record keeping, making sure transactions are properly documented, ensuring numbers balance correctly. For what kind of business? Marcus paused. Import-export, logistics, various enterprises that require careful financial oversight. The vagueness felt intentional. Sarah pressed further. Legal enterprises? Legal is a complicated word. Most business operates in gray areas. Tax optimization, regulatory interpretation, competitive advantage. The law is often more flexible than people realize. Sarah's stomach tightened. Are you asking me to do something illegal? I'm asking you to do accounting. How you categorize that work is up to you. The distinction felt paper-thin. Sarah walked to her window, looking down at the street where normal people lived normal lives with normal problems. Marcus Romano existed in a different universe, one where problems were solved with phone calls and envelopes of cash. What if I get caught? What if there are consequences? There won't be. How can you be sure? Because I'm very good at what I do. Because the people I work with are professionals. Because we don't make mistakes that lead to consequences. His certainty should have been reassuring. Instead, it made Sarah's chest tight with anxiety. Marcus Romano lived in a world where mistakes weren't tolerated, where professionals handled problems with methods she probably didn't want to understand. I need more time, she said. Time is a luxury, Sarah. Your rent is due in 2 weeks. Your daycare payment is overdue. Your car needs repairs you can't afford. Time doesn't solve those problems, decisions do. Each statement hit like a physical blow. How did he know about her daycare payment? Her car troubles? Had he been watching her, researching her financial situation, cataloging her vulnerabilities? How do you know all that? She asked. I told you. I pay attention. That's not paying attention. That's surveillance. Marcus's laugh was soft, almost fond. You're smart. I like that about you. Don't change the subject. I'm not. Your intelligence is exactly why this conversation is necessary. You understand the mathematics of your situation. Your current job pays $8 an hour. 24 hours a week if you're lucky. That's less than $200 weekly, before taxes. Your expenses exceed your income by approximately $400 monthly. Without intervention, you'll be evicted within 60 days. Sarah's hands shook as his analysis continued. My offer provides $3,000 monthly, flexible hours, and comprehensive benefits including health care for Emma. The mathematics are simple. Accept help or accept failure. The brutal honesty made her legs weak. Sarah sank into her couch, phone pressed against her ear like a lifeline. What happens if I say no? She asked. Nothing happens. You continue living exactly as you are now, struggling, stressed, one emergency away from catastrophe. I withdraw my assistance and wish you well. And if I say yes, your problems disappear. Emma grows up secure, educated, provided for. You develop skills, connections, opportunities. Your life improves dramatically. Sarah looked at Emma, who had abandoned her blocks in favor of chewing on a board book. Her daughter deserved better than constant financial stress, better than a mother who cried quietly in the bathroom when bills arrived. There has to be a catch, Sarah said. The catch is that some knowledge can't be unknown. Some doors once opened change you permanently. You'll see how power actually works, how money actually moves, how problems actually get solved. That knowledge comes with responsibility. What kind of responsibility? Loyalty, discretion, understanding that some conversations never leave the room where they happen. Sarah closed her eyes. You're talking about keeping secrets. I'm talking about being professional. Professional criminals? Marcus's silence stretched long enough that Sarah wondered if he'd hung up. When he spoke again, his voice carried a different weight. I'm talking about people who understand that the world isn't divided into legal and illegal. It's divided into effective and ineffective, successful and struggling, protected and vulnerable. I'm offering you protection, Sarah. The question is whether you're wise enough to accept it. Emma started fussing, tired from her long day. Sarah picked her up, settling her daughter against her chest while Marcus waited for an answer that would determine both their futures. I need to see what the work actually involves, Sarah said finally, before I commit to anything. Fair enough, tomorrow night. Same restaurant, same time. I'll show you exactly what I'm asking you to do. And if I don't like what I see, then you walk away. No questions, no pressure, no consequences. Sarah rocked Emma gently, feeling her daughter's heartbeat against her chest. Promise? I promise. The line went dead. Sarah stared at her phone, knowing she'd just agreed to cross a line she couldn't uncross. Tomorrow night, she would learn what Marcus Romano actually did for a living. She would discover what kind of accounting work required such careful discretion, such absolute loyalty, such generous compensation. Emma fell asleep in her arms, trusting and peaceful, unaware that her mother was preparing to enter a world where trust was currency and peace was purchased with carefully managed secrets. Sarah carried her daughter to the crib, tucking her in with the soft yellow blanket Marcus had provided. Outside her window, the city hummed with ordinary life. People driving home from legitimate jobs, families eating dinner around kitchen tables, children sleeping safely in beds their parents could afford without moral compromise. Sarah envied their simplicity, even as she prepared to abandon it. The envelope of cash sat on her dresser, visible proof that Marcus Romano's promises were real. Tomorrow she would discover what those promises actually cost. The second dinner at Romano's felt like entering a different restaurant entirely. The same elegant decor, the same discreet service, but tonight Sarah noticed details that had escaped her before. The way conversations stopped when certain people walked past. The deference in servers' postures around specific tables. The careful distance maintained between different dining areas as if invisible territories had been marked and respected. Marcus waited in the same private room, but this time he wasn't alone. A woman sat across from him, blonde hair pulled back severely, wearing a charcoal suit that screamed expensive professionalism. She looked up as Sarah entered with Emma, her assessment swift and thorough. "Sarah, this is Victoria Kane, my financial advisor." Victoria stood, extending a manicured hand. "Ms. Chen, Marcus has told me about your background. Impressive analytical skills from what I understand." Sarah shook the offered hand, noting the firm grip and the way Victoria's eyes never left hers during the greeting. This wasn't social pleasantry. This was evaluation. "Please, sit." Marcus gestured to the chair beside Victoria. Tonight, no high chair waited for Emma. Instead, a portable crib had been set up in the corner, along with toys and bottles that suggested someone had planned for an extended meeting. "Before we begin," Victoria said, opening a leather portfolio, "I need you to understand that what we discuss tonight is confidential, completely, regardless of your final decision." Sarah settled Emma in the crib before responding. "I understand. Do you?" Victoria's tone carried skepticism. Confidentiality isn't just keeping secrets. It's understanding that some information can be dangerous. That knowledge without context can be misinterpreted. That questions asked in the wrong places can have serious consequences. The warning hung in the air like smoke. Sarah looked at Marcus, who watched the exchange with calm attention. "What kind of consequences?" Sarah asked. Victoria and Marcus exchanged a glance. Some silent communication passed between them before Victoria spoke again. "Let me show you what we do." Victoria opened her portfolio and extracted a series of documents. Financial statements, transaction records, shipping manifests. At first glance, they looked like standard business paperwork. Sarah studied them more carefully, her accounting training automatically analyzing the numbers. "Import-export business," Victoria explained. "We facilitate transactions between overseas suppliers and domestic distributors. Clothing, electronics, luxury goods. The profit margins are substantial because we maintain exclusive relationships with manufacturers who prefer discrete partners." Sarah followed the numbers across spreadsheets. The volumes were enormous. Millions of dollars moving through accounts she didn't recognize. Profits that seemed disproportionate to the described business model. "These margins," Sarah said, pointing to a calculation that bothered her. "They're unusually high for legitimate import business." Victoria smiled. "Very good. You're right. The margins reflect additional services we provide." "What kind of services?" Marcus leaned forward. "Logistics. Problem solving. Ensuring shipments arrive safely on time without unnecessary government interference." Sarah's pulse quickened. "Government interference? Customs procedures can be complicated," Victoria explained. "Inspections, delays, bureaucratic inefficiencies that cost time and money. We have relationships that smooth those processes." "Relationships?" Connections. People who understand that business should flow efficiently, who appreciate the value of expedited processing. Sarah stared at the documents, beginning to understand what she was seeing. The numbers told a story of massive cash flows moving through carefully structured channels. Import-export was the framework, but something else generated these profits. "You're bribing customs officials," she said. Victoria's expression didn't change. "We're ensuring efficient processing of legitimate goods. The methods are less important than the results." Sarah looked at Marcus. "This is illegal." "This is business," he replied. "Every major company operates in gray areas. Tax optimization, regulatory interpretation, relationship management. We're simply more honest about acknowledging those realities." "Honest?" Sarah's voice rose slightly. "You're asking me to help launder money. I'm asking you to manage financial records for a profitable enterprise," Marcus said calmly. "How you choose to characterize that work is your decision." Sarah stood abruptly, moving to check on Emma, who was playing peacefully with a stuffed elephant. Her daughter's innocence felt like a rebuke to the conversation happening behind her. "What if I get caught?" Sarah asked without turning around. "You won't," Victoria said. "The systems we use are sophisticated. Multiple layers of protection, legitimate business structures, careful documentation. The accounting work you do is completely legal. Recording transactions, managing spreadsheets, filing reports, all standard bookkeeping procedures. For illegitimate income. For business income, the source is irrelevant to the accounting." Sarah turned back to face them. "The source is relevant to everything." Marcus stood, moving to the window that overlooked the restaurant's main dining room. "Do you know what I see down there, Sarah? People who've made compromises. Politicians who vote for bills written by lobbyists. Lawyers who defend clients they know are guilty. Doctors who prescribe medications they know won't help. Everyone makes deals with moral ambiguity. The only difference is how honestly they acknowledge it. That doesn't make it right. Right and wrong are luxuries for people with options. You don't have options. You have a daughter who needs health care, education, stability. You have bills that exceed your income by hundreds of dollars monthly. You have a future that looks exactly like your present unless something changes." Marcus returned to his seat, his voice softening slightly. "I'm offering you a way to provide for Emma, to give her opportunities you never had, to ensure she never knows the anxiety of choosing between groceries and rent." Sarah felt the weight of his words. Emma deserved better than constant financial stress. She deserved a mother who could afford organic food, quality daycare, eventually college tuition. Marcus was offering all of that. "How much money are we talking about?" Sarah asked. Victoria consulted her portfolio. Starting salary is $60,000 annually. Performance bonuses can add another $20,000 to $30,000. Full benefits, including health care and childcare assistance. After 2 years, assuming satisfactory performance, we'd discuss partnership opportunities. The numbers hit like physical blows. $60,000 was more than Sarah had ever imagined earning. With bonuses, it approached what successful professionals made. Enough to move out of her cramped apartment, to buy a car that wouldn't break down, to start saving for Emma's future. "Partnership opportunities?" Sarah asked. "Equity participation, profit sharing, eventually your own portfolio of clients and transactions." Sarah sank back into her chair. "You're asking me to become a criminal." "I'm asking you to become successful," Marcus said. "The distinction matters less than you think." Emma made a soft sound from her crib, and Sarah's attention turned automatically to her daughter. Emma was stacking blocks with determined concentration, building something that would inevitably fall down. But she kept building anyway, driven by instinct to create, to grow, to reach higher. "What happens to Emma if something goes wrong?" Sarah asked. "Nothing goes wrong," Victoria said. "We've been operating for 8 years without a single legal complication. Our methods are tested, our protections comprehensive. But if something did go wrong," Marcus met her gaze directly, "then Emma would be provided for. Education, healthcare, living expenses. She would never suffer for choices you made on her behalf." The promise felt both reassuring and terrifying. Marcus Romano took care of his people, but becoming his people meant accepting responsibilities she barely understood. "I need to think about this," Sarah said. "Of course." Marcus stood, signaling the end of the meeting. "Take your time. But understand that this offer has an expiration date. Opportunities like this don't wait indefinitely. Victoria packed her documents with practiced efficiency. If you decide to join us, your first assignment would be relatively simple. Reconciling shipping records with payment schedules. Nothing complicated. Nothing obviously questionable. A test, Sarah said. A beginning. Marcus walked Sarah to the restaurant's entrance, where the same valet waited with the same black Mercedes. During the drive home, they sat in comfortable silence, jazz playing softly while Sarah processed everything she'd learned. "You're scared," Marcus said as they pulled up to her building. "Of course I'm scared." "Good. Fear keeps you careful. Careful keeps you safe." Sarah gathered Emma and her diaper bag, accepting Marcus's help without protest. At her building's entrance, he handed her another envelope. "Regardless of your decision," he said, "for Emma." Sarah opened the envelope enough to see more cash than she'd ever held at once. "I can't keep accepting money from you." "You can, and you will, because Emma needs things you can't provide on a coffee shop salary." The truth of it made her chest tight. Emma did need things. Healthcare, proper nutrition, educational opportunities, a future that didn't involve counting dollars and rationing formula. "When do you need an answer?" Sarah asked. "Soon, but not tonight." Marcus waited until she was safely inside before driving away. Sarah climbed the stairs to her apartment, Emma sleeping peacefully in her arms, another envelope of cash heavy in her pocket. She stood at her window, watching the Mercedes disappear into traffic, knowing that her next decision would determine the trajectory of both their lives. The choice felt impossible. Accept Marcus's offer and provide Emma with every advantage money could buy, but risk everything if the illegal enterprise collapsed. Refuse and condemn both of them to a future of constant financial stress, limited opportunities, and the grinding anxiety of never having enough. Sarah looked at Emma, sleeping peacefully in her crib, trusting her mother to make the right choices. But right and wrong had become complicated concepts. Was it right to accept illegal money for legal work? Was it wrong to refuse opportunities that could transform Emma's future? The answer would come tomorrow. Tonight, Sarah simply held her daughter close and tried to imagine a world where such choices weren't necessary. I hope this psychological thriller has kept you on the edge of your seat. Stories like this force us to examine our own moral boundaries and ask difficult questions about what we do for the people we love. If you've made it this far, you're part of a community that appreciates complex narratives and isn't afraid to explore uncomfortable truths. Consider subscribing to join others who crave stories that challenge assumptions and dive deep into human nature. What did you think of Sarah's impossible choice? Have you ever faced a decision where every option carried a moral cost? Share your thoughts below. I'd love to hear how this story resonated with you and whether you think Sarah made the right choice, whatever that choice might be.